Hey, Minimizers, you're getting ready to watch some footage from one of the Minimalists live events from the Love People Use Things tour. If you'd like to see us on the road, visit theminimalists.com/tour, or you can find all of our live events over at patreon.com/theminimalists. Enjoy.
The Minimalists.
Howdy.
Hello.
Hey, what's up, man?
Good to meet you guys again. You guys came here in 2017.
Yes, indeed.
I had the opportunity to get a hug then.
So we'll pass it on to all these people.
Yes, okay.
As long as you have a negative COVID test or something.
Definitely. So my name is Jordan.
Hey, Jordan.
Jordan.
I have 4 kids. My beautiful wife sitting over there as well. She's stepmom to all 4 of them. I had a question about minimalism and owning a home.
Yes.
Sometimes I hear people, I rented an apartment because it was easier to get rid of everything in my home, sell my house, get out of debt or anything. My wife and I have the opportunity to own 2 homes right now, which is great investment. I'm just curious about home ownership and minimalism and buying the home, planning to live in it for 5 years, 6 years, and then, why people say upgrading. So I'm just kind of curious about what your guys' thoughts are on home ownership and minimalism.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're not against owning homes, right? Well, it goes back to that question. Like, you have 2 homes, and you and your wife can ask yourselves, can we afford this? And if the answer is yes, then by all means, have a home. I think that having a mortgage, Dave Ramsey would say, which I treat him as the financial, guru. He would probably kill me if he heard me call him a guru. But anyway, he would say, hey, look, 30-year mortgage, that, or 15-year mortgage, that would be okay to have. But he really would encourage you to pay that off as soon as possible and not accumulate any other debt, especially with a car, and then definitely credit cards, and then those payday loans, definitely don't do that. Which brings me to my point of there are some debts that are better than others. But Josh and I are firm believers on there's no such thing as good debt. Who is grateful for the debt they have? Now, I do understand there are some people like Mark Zuckerberg who, bought a $50 million house and he got a 30-year mortgage on it at a really low interest rate. He could have paid cash, but he's got $50 million to put into the stock market and gain 7% year over year. So, if you're really, really rich, okay, I get it. But still, I don't look at his debt like it's good debt. So, for me personally, I try to have as little debt as possible. But yeah, owning a home, it just begs that question: can I afford it? And I'll tell you, living in LA, rent is really expensive in LA. And I have went through this, okay, can I buy a house out in Altadena or something, somewhere way out of way out of the city. Maybe I could afford that and afford that debt payment, but I don't plan on staying there for 15 years. Now, if I was planning on staying there for at least 15 years, I would probably look into trying to buy a home somewhere. So my wife and I rent, because we look at that as really, each month we're paying for this ability to kind of turn our lives around on a dime. So I think it's Derek Sivers who he talks about, paying for rent rather than paying for a mortgage in his situation is paying for the freedom to do what he wants when he wants. So, that's what I'm doing in LA. I'm renting, but it would be a much different situation if I was planning on being there long term.
I think it really depends on whether or not the house is a burden or a blessing, right? And I just sold a house. I owned a house outright back in Dayton, Ohio, which cost about the same price as a parking spot in Los Angeles. And I owned this house outright, and I rented it every month, and it was fine. It wasn't a big problem, but the psychological weight of it, because I knew I wasn't going back to Dayton, at least not anytime soon, the psychological weight of it was, oh, you know what? Having renters, being a landlord, not for me. For some people, they're like, yes. I have a really good friend, I write about him in the book, who's living the American dream. He owns 25 properties, and he is so passionate, and he enjoys it. His name's Jamar, and he's in Cincinnati. And man, couldn't be a better situation for him to own a house. For me, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to be a landlord. In terms of a mortgage, yeah, I'd prefer not to have one, but it's the only a debt that I would find acceptable in my own life. By the way, I'm not telling you all not to have debt. You do whatever you want. We're not policing anyone else's behavior, right?
We are handing out certificates, though.
Yeah, some of you aren't going to be allowed to be minimalists, especially if you own a home. Yeah, and so I think ultimately you have to determine, man, is this really serving me and what I want, serving my outcome, or am I just doing it because of why? Well, we're told what? You should own a home. You should have a 30-year mortgage. There are only 2 countries in the world where that's the standard. We're one of them. In fact, we now have 40-year mortgages. We have 83-month car loans. Well, why are we doing this? We are enslaving our future selves for some temporary pleasure today. And if that's what I'm doing, then, man, I'm probably going to go the other way. One other thing, because there are no shoulds, right? There are only coulds. So you could own a home. And people hear me say this, and they're like, well, I should have a mortgage is what society tells me. So obviously society's wrong. So I guess it's I shouldn't have a mortgage or own a home. That's not what I'm saying either, right? There's this great cartoon that I saw. It's a New Yorker cartoon. It was a husband and wife, and they're on a farm, and he looks over, and he has his phone in his hand. He goes, honey, and they're on their farm. It's a beautiful, big farm. And he goes, honey, I think I only like the Instagram part of owning a farm. And so if you like only the Instagram part of owning a house, then maybe it makes more sense to rent. Thanks for your question.
Thanks.
Did you enjoy this video? If so, you can listen to full episodes of the Minimalists Private Podcast available exclusively on Patreon. Visit patreon.com/theminimalists today. Your support keeps our podcast and YouTube channel 100% advertisement free.